Welcome. You're at home with Jim and Joy, and we're delighted that you have invited us into your home. We want you to be a part of our show. We want to hear from you. We want you to give us a jingle at 205-271-2980 or call toll-free 1-800-221-9460. Always, please send us an email, jimandjoy@EWTN.com. Well, today we're going to have another wonderful show for you. We're going to bring to you two very special, dedicated human beings. His name, one is Nathan Wright, who just happens to be my son-in-law. Very proud.
Mr. Wright.
Mr. Wright. And Stephanie Burke, who is the wife of Dan Burke, who is the editor of the Catholic Register and works here at EWTN. We've had Dan Burke on our show also. But today, they're both principals, and they're going to talk about Birmingham Catholic schools, about the importance of education, about Catholic school. We all know that the home is the domestic church, right, where we're educating and raising and rearing our children, but then we entrust our children into the hands of educators. And we all have had those people in our lives that have made a difference. And some of them were teachers who maybe spoke into our lives at times and needed to rescue us when we had to have a good spoken word, or they set the light bulb for us.
Right.
I had one of those teachers in high school, and it was just like, oh my goodness. And you know when that happens in your life, and as a parent, you know when it happens in the lives of your children. So we're going to talk about the importance and the beauty of Catholic schools. Right. So, hon, I know there was a great story you wanted to share.
I just keep thinking of The Miracle Worker, one of my favorite movies of all time. Story of Anne Sullivan, the special needs teacher of children with special needs, and Helen Keller from Alabama, who through a sickness was blind, deaf, and mute. And Anne Sullivan, who had her own disability, she could barely see, came to try and reach her. You know, she came with the best of intentions, and she was a teacher. You know, we're thinking about teaching and communication and being students. And the resistance to Anne Sullivan coming to reach Helen Keller, to unlock, to liberate her, that she could be the full person that she was meant to be. And she was resisted by the family to some degree, even though they invited her. Helen really resisted her violently. She didn't understand what Anne was trying to do, how she was trying to teach her, especially with the hand language, the hand signs, and associating these signs with things and people, and so trying to communicate. And I love the eating scenes in that movie, The Miracle Worker. If you haven't seen it, you need to see it.
Anne Bancroft and Patty Duke. That was the first one. There was another one after that too, but that was good. But
those eating scenes with Helen would like attack Anne Sullivan. She stabbed her with a fork, and because she was trying to make her sit there and to eat, not like an animal, but like a person. But it was absurd, because Helen can't see, Helen can't hear. That's what absurdity is about. I think the root of that word absurd means deaf, that you can't hear. So if you're trying to speak to me, I don't get it. Anyway, she's trying to teach her, not making much progress, but finally, Helen's able to sit there at the table, and the parents say, this is really good. She sits at the table. You can go now.
She's come so far.
Right.
Yeah.
But Anne Sullivan was like, she sits at the table because I've brutalized her. She doesn't know why she's at the table. The teacher wanted to unlock communication. She was like, I wanted to understand that this is a chair. I wanted to understand she's at a table. I wanted to understand knife and fork, not just that we've subdued her. And I wanted to know. And then they have another confrontation, and they go out to that pump, the water pump, which they've been there probably a million times. And Anne's making the signs there and saying, this is a pump, give it back to me. This is water. She's done it a million times, but suddenly Helen understands it. And then Helen starts hitting the ground. What is this? And she says, this is the ground. What is this? This is a tree. What is this? This is Mama. This is Daddy. And then finally, she goes up to Anne Sullivan, who's the miracle worker, the teacher, and she goes up to her and she goes, and she makes the signs and she says, teacher. And the one who she had stabbed now, she gets up on her lap and kisses her. And she gives her a key that she had stolen from her, and she gives her the key back, like she had unlocked her life. And this is what a teacher does. And that's what the grace of God can do. And these are the kind of pupils we need to be to open ourselves up, that the ignorance, the absurdity of life would be taken away, and we would know all that we could possibly know. So today we're focusing upon teaching and the great work of teachers, whether it's a mom, a dad, a grandma, a grandpa, the teachers you've had in your life. And we're going to be sharing about that with Nathan and Stephanie, who are principals and Christian educators.
So we want you to be a part of the show. So stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll have more of beautiful Stephanie Burke and Mr. Nathan Wright. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. Well, you're at home with Jim and Joy, and we're live, and we have a live audience, and we want to hear from you. So give us a jingle at 205-271-2980, or call us toll-free, 1-800-221-9460. Always send us an email, jimandjoy@EWTN.com. Well, we have with us two people that we love,
Yes, we do.
and we're excited that they are here. We have Mrs. Stephanie Burke, and Stephanie is the principal at St. Aloysius here in Birmingham, and Mr. Nathan Wright, who is the principal of St. Francis Xavier. Both of primary schools go all the way from, elementary schools go from K or 4K, all the way up to 8th grade,
That's right.
right? So the importance of Catholic schools and how beautiful they are in forming and shaping the next generation. Well, but first we want to hear a little bit about your personal story, how you got here, and your calling into being a principal.
Okay, wonderful. Well, of course, my beautiful husband is Dan Burke, and it's a tremendous grace to be married to such an awesome person.
Yes.
We have 4 beautiful children. They're grown and all living and working somewhere in this area, some of them in education, some in law enforcement. But I had the gift of being in public education for years. And when I'm a cradle Catholic, and when I really started to understand my Catholicity, the gift of the Catholic faith, I really had a tremendous reversion into the faith about 8 years ago. I had already been in public education and administration and teaching for about 15 years at that point. And the opportunity afforded itself that I got to go to daily Mass because of my role in overseeing a number of schools through ESL work. And going through daily Mass, I would pray and go to Mass and say, Lord, what do you ask of me? What do you want of me in this beautiful new discovery of the beauty of the Catholic faith? And he really asked me to merge my faith with my work. And that was something that had not occurred to me. So I did a little research. I ran into the superintendent of Catholic schools when we were in Colorado. And I said, I think I'm supposed to talk to you. And we had a conversation, and pretty soon I was the principal of a Catholic school. And I can tell you it is, outside of marrying Dan Burke, it's been one of the most beautiful decisions of my life, and gives me a way to share the beauty of our faith with children, and helping to form teachers and children and families, and really that work of discipleship right from the ground up is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful gift. So.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you. And Mr. Nathan Wright, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Right. So I came to Birmingham and thought that I was coming for reasons of work, and found out I was really coming to meet Rebecca, your beautiful daughter, your twin daughter, Rebecca, and also to find the truth of the Catholic Church. And I often say there's 2 things that I never regret, never question, 2 of the best decisions of my life: marrying Rebecca and joining the Catholic Church. And so they become pillars of my life. And we have 6 children. Nathan, who is in 6th grade, and at my school, St. Francis Xavier. Cecilia is in 5th grade. Gianna is in 3rd grade. It's her feast day today, St. Gianna Mola.
Yeah.
Jude's in 1st grade. And then we have Nina at home. She'll join in kindergarten next year. And Gloria is 3, so
You
she'll
could say
remain at home.
all those names. The rest of the show is like really easy. that was a lot.
Usually at home it's just hey you.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
it's hard to remember all their names sometimes in the heat of it. But no, I love Catholic school. This is my 11th year at St. Francis Xavier, and it's as Stephanie said, it's an amazing opportunity to participate in the ministry of the church.
Yeah. It's interesting you speak about conversion to the Catholic faith out of another wonderful evangelical tradition, and you speak about a reversion, a renewal, and I just think that's interesting, and it's led you into this whole area of education and hopefully the transformation of young people.
Yeah, truly, I think that once you fall in love or in love with the Lord, you can't help but share it, and that mission of your life comes out, and then you have to do something with it. So,
Well, tell our family at home, why Catholic schools? Why, if a mom and dad, and they live in a really good public school system, and they're taking care of their kids, why Catholic school? What is the importance and the difference that Catholic school brings to a family that maybe a public school or even sometimes homeschooling wouldn't even bring?
right. When I start this conversation with families who are kind of testing the waters a little bit, I want them to understand that, or I think they sense that there's something bigger there. We can learn things intellectually, and we can learn to take care of our bodies and all those things, but the Catholic education, a good Catholic education, really speaks to the integral formation of a child. So, because we're not just physical beings, we're not just intellectual beings, we have this soul and this completeness of our life and what is our mission. And by helping a child really discover their gifts and forming them intellectually in all those different areas, we can help them discover those gifts and how they might serve others, how they might serve the church, and how to help them ultimately. If you came to our school and said to our 200 students at an assembly, and all you have to do is ask the question, what's the goal? They're going to say, to get to heaven. And if we learn that, then everything else starts to fall into place, if that's our goal. So
That's powerful.
Yeah.
In general, Nathan, why Catholic school?
Well, I think it starts with that really frightening question that a priest asks when you baptize your child. And they said, do you understand your responsibility to raise your child in the faith? So it starts when they enter the family of God, and that priest confers baptism, but then then puts it all back on the parent. Now take this child, as you did from the hospital, and not just raise them physically, but raise them in the faith spiritually. You're completely responsible for their spiritual formation in the faith. And so that's an awesome responsibility. And so foundational to my understanding of Catholic school is I frequently say, we partner with parents in your responsibility to raise your child in the faith. We're not doing it for you.
Right.
We're assisting. We're assisting in this responsibility, and so Catholic school is one way in which to accomplish that, to assist that. But I often say there's options of homeschool, there's options of Catholic school, there's options of public school, and I think that covers it. Are there other options? I don't think there's many other options.
We're interviewing you.
Right.
You can't ask us questions.
So
Neglect. There's neglect.
Right, or no school, I guess. I guess truancy. But of those three, I think that everyone homeschools. At the end of the day, every parent is homeschooling.
Yeah.
Because no matter where a child goes during the day for their education, they come home.
Right.
And no matter what they got or didn't receive at the school of their choice, they're home.
Right.
And so the parents are ultimately responsible. And any place a child goes during the day is only a resource to assist the parent in the education that they're going to make sure that the child has. And so a good Catholic school is going to assist very well in that. But no school can ever be complete in that task.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How important, and you shared about the parents' role, how important are parents in aiding and assisting you all in getting that child educated, right? And just to you as a principal and to teachers.
Oh, it's very, very crucial. And, the world's an interesting place, a difficult place sometimes. Sometimes we have the gift of children, or children have the gift of having mother and father. They have that complete unit, and they're able to lean on that. Oftentimes that doesn't happen, and you have single moms, you have grandparents raising their children, all kinds of different beautiful combinations, but that come with its own challenges. And I think at the end of the day, Nathan's right, we partner with that family, whatever it looks like, to help them form that child. And we want to engage them, we want to assist them, we want to fill in on those gaps that they may not have the resources to understand, or may not have something to lean on in order to do that. Also, they enrich our school when they bring their gifts, when they can come in to talk to classes about maybe their careers or different cultures or anything. So it's really becomes a bigger, broader family, the parish family, the school community family, and we're all walking this path together. So it's really wonderful.
And I think what's interesting as well is that a phenomenon I've seen is that because of our culture, because of there's social structures that are disappearing, where our families are more isolated in their homes, and even within their homes are isolated in their rooms on devices. There's not, bowling on Thursday night. There's not church on this night. Our families are isolated, and so the school becomes their entrance into participation in the church. And oftentimes our school families are some of our most integrated, dedicated, involved church families. And they're finding a place in the church. And that's what's exciting to me is that these are families that thought they were choosing a school have found their place in the Catholic Church. Principals, administrators, teachers, we often feel more blessed than the students to be involved because our spiritual lives are enriched, because we're a part of this way of life. We pray more than we would otherwise. And the children are going home and they're talking to their parents and saying, I can't wait to go to church on Sunday. It's going to be this certain feast. When are we going to go to this holy day of obligation? Mom, when are you going to go to Mass? You're going to come to our school Mass this Tuesday? Oh, I didn't know it was a holy day of obligation. So the families are being brought into the church, into full participation through the school.
And that is so beautiful, because it is. You're trying to save. Maybe you just think, I'm here to educate a child, and a child's being dropped off. In some parents' minds, they're just dropping their child off. But then God always has a greater surprise. And really, all of a sudden, the marriage could get saved, the family can get saved and turned around, and it is all that beautiful stuff that can happen.
Yeah, we actually had this amazing, surprising gift because we go to educate our children every day. We're faithful in that formation, and we just work and work and work, and sometimes the Lord reveals what's on the other side. And this year, our RCIA program at the church, half of it had come out of the school. We didn't even know it was coming. I mean, these were folks that were not on the radar, so to speak, that weren't leaning in and necessarily directly asking questions, but we were finding that through the formation of the children, through their involvement with the school, that they, like Nathan said, we're starting to go, oh, there's something more here, there's something more here, and these entire families are coming in. It's so beautiful.
Our Catholic schools have always been an extension of the Catholic Church, and they've been extensions, tools of evangelism. That's part of our mission, is to bring the church to the community. And it's really exciting. And I often say, I don't know if this is true or not, that the Catholic Church, in my opinion, is the best deal in the world for parents. If you bring your children on Sunday faithfully, no matter what, and they participate in the life of the church, I think they have a halfway decent chance of being good kids, no matter if you're a bad parent or not. And that's a comfort to me as a parent, that the church provides so many resources. All we have to do is show up and participate. And then school makes that even more powerful, because then they're every day. And so the school can become a place where they're literally being raised by the church.
Yeah, that's an excellent, all of your points are really excellent. But I just think about when I was growing up, and pretty much, in my younger years, it was like, and this, I don't want to put down public schools, but the public schools at that time were pretty much on the page of where the church was. They weren't teaching theology or so on, but in terms of basic morality, marriage and the family, and then just teaching academics. So it was kind of like you grew up someplace, and even the media, for the most part, there wasn't so much of what we see now. So the culture, everybody was on the same page. And what I just heard you say is that hey, if you're if you're committed to your faith, bringing your child with you to the Mass and celebrating that, and you put them in a Catholic school, you've got a pretty good chance they're going to turn out okay. And I think that you wouldn't have to have said that a while back, that you have to have this education, because everybody was kind of just basically, you know, like the religion part's for you to do what you want to do. We're not going to do anything wild here in school.
Right.
But in so many places, it is getting wild. It's just a whole other culture.
Well, and I say that meaning that we have a church that's committed to orthodoxy and committed to the Eucharist and committed to being thoroughly Catholic.
You have a church and a school.
A church and a school both. And we know that our diocese and we know that our church and we know that our school are aligned in teaching the truth of our church and being centered on the Eucharist. And so, and that's what's so powerful about being a part of it.
Yeah. Well, you know, we sent our son to Catholic school. We put him, and Jim was the Episcopal priest, and we sent him to St. Aloysius. And they did such a great job that the Episcopal priest's son, at the end of 8th grade, he wanted to convert.
Wow.
He really did. He was like, I want to become Catholic. And we were like, you can't become Catholic. Your father's an Episcopal priest.
We did ask him why, though, and he says, well, we were charismatic Episcopals. He says it's much quieter in the Catholic Church, and the sermons are shorter. I was like, oh, yeah. I'm sure there were better reasons, but it was like.
But really, he really got that, you know, and that was so beautiful. And we said, well, Wes, you know, you could do that later, but right now it's probably best you just hang with us. But eventually he did become Catholic, which was a beautiful thing, because I watched that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade journey in his life, and he was really being formed.
Yeah, he was.
You know, and he was learning about the church and the beauty of saying yes to God and standing up. And he was like, you know, I want to do that, which was really good. But so anyway, well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll have more with Nathan and Stephanie. Don't go away. We'll be right back. See you guys. Welcome back. Well, you're at home with Jim and Joy. And you know, right now we're going to go straight to an email. I would really love to send my children to Catholic schools, but at this point in my life, it doesn't seem like it's an affordable option. Is there a way to make it more affordable? This is Rhonda from Texas. Thanks. Is Catholic school expensive, or is it affordable?
Well, it can be a stretch. It can be a stretch, and that's just the honest truth. Fortunately enough, here in Alabama, when Governor Bentley passed the Alabama Accountability Act, that helped us tremendously, because families who are in financial need can apply for that. It's like a voucher system, and then they can apply for that scholarship money if they qualify financially to apply it to Catholic school tuition. That has really helped a number of our families, especially at St. Aloysius, to help especially families coming out of failing school systems where they don't have any options.
Right.
We're like this oasis where they can pull their children out to a better school system, a faith-based school system, and receive an education that they might not otherwise have. I don't know, Nathan might have some other suggestions.
It's expensive.
As well.
It's expensive, and depending on the area of the country, it may be unaffordable. But you're investing in your children. And so you're making the best investment you can ever make. And I see the carpool line, and I see some of the cars, and I see parents that are driving a car instead of that they could have something different. And instead of a car payment, they're paying tuition.
Right.
So they're making a sacrifice.
Right.
But it's for their children. And so it has to be in that context. The one, pursue all options, as Stephanie was saying, seek out the ways in which Catholic school can be affordable. And in some places there are great programs. I think parish priests should be approached, because I think we can't assume that they don't want to help a family that wants to attend unless they're given the opportunity. And they can't, depending on the parish, maybe that nothing can be done, but at least give God the opportunity to have a child in Catholic school.
Right.
And say a prayer. If God wants my child here, make it possible. Give God the opportunity before you shut the door.
Right.
You know, as you're saying, you know, up front, you know, it's expensive. Now, on the other hand, I'm just thinking, well, if you look at the expense of public school education per student, whatever that might be, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, according to where you are. And what you're paying into a Catholic school, let's say it's 5,000 or 10,000, whatever it might be, it's less, but you're already paying your taxes in, and so then you're going beyond that, and so that's why it seems expensive. And there are ways to be involved politically and to say, the money I'm giving is my money, and I want to choose where my child goes. Give me the $10,000 I just put in. Give people the power to choose where they want to go. And I see a real desire for that among every class, group, race, but somebody's got it bottled up somewhere. And this is where we have to be like that persistent widow. Keep knocking and demanding and saying, I want my money and I want to educate. I might keep my child right where he is. I feel good about my public school. Or I might do something else here or there. And I think this is where we need to push on that door.
And if you're at a parish and don't have children and you're not connected, and you know it's a vibrant school and you know that it's being used by God, don't be afraid to go to the secretary of that school and say, here's a check, apply it to a child that needs it.
Right.
Because you have no idea what that might mean. And I've said a prayer sometimes when a family's come in that couldn't afford it and I couldn't help them. I say, God, make a way. And sometimes someone will come and say, here's a check for $1,000. Apply it to whatever family needs it the most. So you don't know what that $500 or that $200 that you might allocate to a Catholic school, what that might mean to a family.
Yeah. We experienced that even in the Episcopal Church. We had to take our children out of the public school, and we tried everything we could to make it a better school system, but it wasn't turning. So we had to take our kids out, and it was a great sacrifice to send them to John Carroll. We got a clergy discount, being that he was Episcopalian. The Catholics were very nice to us, and we did that. And then one of our parishioners stepped forward and said, I want to bankroll your children's education. Which was a lot of money.
We put that off for a while, about 5 minutes or so.
We were like, okay, and it was, but that was a gift he gave to us, because it was like, I believe in and he was evangelical, Protestant guy, but he believed in what was being done at the Catholic school and did that. And there are human beings out there, don't limit God, right?
Right. And we have someone, a beautiful soul at St. Aloysius, and he comes in and he has a check that comes in, and he comes in, he signs it over and hands it over to the secretary. And he made that spiritual, commitment years ago. And so that goes in, and it does offer an option. Sometimes the principal might have something aside to help families in need. They might be able to reduce it enough so it's more affordable. And find creative ways.
But trust God for that. Now,
Yes.
one of the things I wanted to talk about, I think in general, people really believe that you're going to get a great education in Catholic schools. I think that's just a given thing. But talk about the discipline and the structure that Catholic schools bring to a family, to a child.
Right. It is just such a central part of what we can offer our students, and that structure is important. I think anybody that's been in some of the public schools, it can be a little scary, especially as you get up to the middle school and the high school years and you see what's going on in society, on the internet. And our children are bringing that into the schools. This is what's happening. So in the Catholic school system, we try to mitigate that with our teaching that goes against that, to bring structure to thought, to replace the world with things that are heavenly and godly, so it helps to organize thoughts and belief systems. And then also we do have very, very high expectations. And it's not militaristic. It's just, if we can learn self-control and we can channel that energy that we have as a child to our studies and learning how to think critically and how to keep up with our stuff and be organized and find our homework and get that turned in, and those expectations are there, that's going to help us be better students, and that's going to follow through in life. A lot of the lessons that we learn in school are going to follow through with us.
Absolutely. I think Stephanie said it great, and really what I think about sometimes is how can our school be a way of life, a Catholic way of life in everything that we do. And so the structure and discipline enable us to control ourselves in a way that enables us to choose the good. It's a virtuous life, it's the virtues that we're trying to promote. We're trying to help produce a good life. And so the structure, the discipline, all the opportunities that students have through the program to attain virtue is really exciting.
Yeah. And it's just so clear. In one sense, you know, we're so reluctant, you know, we don't want to say, well, we're proselytizing and so on and so forth, but I'll tell you what, the world is really unashamed. They're coming after our kids, basically. And they're not amoral, they have a morality. And it's you, it's this narcissistic, selfish, it's all about you, and the weak and the helpless, you know, in the womb and the aged and so on. They're not of equal worth and value. And this is really coming forth. They have an idea of what marriage is. They have an idea of what the family is. They have an idea. And so it isn't like, well, we don't want to push too hard to bring you all these virtues and beautiful things, or we don't want to say a holy fear of God. But the world is doing this. I got bad news for you out there, that if you're sending your kids to schools, if it's public school or colleges or so on, they're going to shape your conscience. And we see this. We work at a crisis pregnancy center, and I've been thinking a lot about conscience, you know. And so as these people come, and some of them think that they want an abortion, some of the women. So we've got to teach, and we've got to share the gospel of life, and somehow maybe God's grace will work, and they can turn. So I've been thinking a lot about conscience, and some of these people, like their conscience is like asleep. It seems not to be formed, but you can awaken what's in there. And some, their conscience is formed through generations of abortion and not being married and so on. So it really is a battle and a war for the mind and for thinking and for a way of life, and for, you're gonna live a way of life. You're gonna have a rule of life. It's either the world's rule or it's some other kind of rule, but the Catholic rule and way is an option. We've got to promote and say, you choose it, but isn't this beautiful?
Right. Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I was going to say is, one of the sayings that I've shared with my families is that, you know, if you allow the world to claim your child, you know, if you don't teach your child to love God, the world will teach them not to love Him. So how do we do that in the Catholic faith and find that rule of life and a better way of living that's going to lead to their salvation? And one of the wonderful things that we get to do in Catholic school is if a child makes a bad decision, whether it's behavioral or just a moment where they just kind of forgot who they were, who they belonged to,
and where they came from,
and they made a poor choice. We get to use the virtues and the beauty of God's church and His teachings and Scripture to say, okay, this happened this way, but what's the opposite way? What's the virtuous way? What is the name for it? And that carries through. I mean, if we can build virtue to get rid of that void of what the world is teaching, then that is going to carry through.
And there's a crisis of authority, and there's a crisis of truth in our culture. And so people are hungry for Catholic schools. Students are hungry. Families are hungry for teachers that say, this is right and this is wrong. That's even profound these days.
Yes.
That this is true, this happened, these are the facts you need to know. Not what do you think about it all the time. Because that's sometimes what the focus is. A teacher becomes an advisor. Parents become advisors, cheerleaders, facilitators. But they need to be leaders, and our teachers need to be those that proclaim truth. Our parents proclaim truth. We proclaim right and wrong. And we're hungry for authority. And obedience produces maturity. And so it's countercultural for children to comply. But when they do, they learn through obedience. Even when they don't understand, that they become mature and they become proud of themselves. But these are countercultural ideas that our Catholic schools, within the walls of our school, that we can promote and bring back this idea that parents need to be parents, and that parents can exert their God-given authority over their children to say, this is right and this is wrong. This is how we will live. This is what's right to know and what's wrong to know. This is how you will understand the world, because God is a God of truth. And so we can establish these things and train our children within the walls of our school and connect that to what's going on at home. because it's not just the home and the school in the best scenario of a Catholic school.
Right.
It's the same things going on both places.
That's the best case scenario.
Right.
We're going to go straight to another email. It says, are all teachers at Catholic schools required to be Catholic? How can parents be sure their kids are not hearing bad things or being negatively influenced by those teachers? This is from Desmond.
That's a great question. It's a very important one. Here in the diocese, and I believe this is true in all dioceses, by the bishop's charter, Catholic teachers who are teaching religion, so those teachers that teach specifically religion, have to be practicing Catholics in good standing. Now, Nathan and I were talking before the show, and one of the first things that you will find to be true as you spend time in Catholic schools is your principal is going to be the beginning of how that school is run. So my suggestion is, how do you find that out? Well, you go and you interview. You talk to the principal. You walk through the schools. You see what the website looks like. You're listening for those important things like, are we faithful to the magisterium of the church? What do your religion textbooks look like? All of ours have been vetted by the bishop and his educational committee here in the diocese to make sure that it is faithful to the church. I have been known to really, really hold out for the Lord to bring me that true teacher that really needs to be here in our school, and I have found that he comes through, and I find on fire, beautiful souls to teach the faith. And then the job doesn't end there in hiring, but there's time spent in my formation, my prayer, that then I go and I help my teachers and I help them with that, because it spills into the children and it spills into the home.
Right.
And that grace comes through we have to be faithful ourselves as leaders. If we're not, then that's going to affect the school. But if we're faithful, it starts with your principal and it goes through the schools.
That's really true.
I completely agree, and it is. Catholic school and teaching in general is intrinsically human. It's an interaction between a little human being and an adult human being. And so the people that are with our children all day become incredibly important, of course, as the questioner has said. And really, I think I interview, and Stephanie would probably agree, probably 4 times the amount that maybe a public school principal might interview. And maybe they would interview as many. But the reason I think it can be more difficult to find a Catholic school teacher is because we're not hiring just a teacher, we're hiring a parent. We're hiring the person that continues the job that you've started at home throughout the day. And so we're not hiring, I meet many great academic teachers, and they can wow you with what they know with their academics, but will they care for the soul of this little person that they're with all day? And Stephanie's right. It begins with the principal. And there's no doubt an element of trust. When you consider a Catholic school, do you trust the person in charge? Do you trust the teacher? And no one's perfect. Our Catholic schools aren't perfect. But are we centered on Jesus? Are we committed to the church?
Well, we're going to hold you over for a third segment. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. More on Catholic education. Why?
Welcome back. Well, you're an important part of the family. And did you know that you can join us live at home? You could be right here in our audience. We have a little audience with us today. You could meet our beautiful guests. All you have to do is contact the EWTN Pilgrimage Department. And you could do that by emailing pilgrimages@ewtn.com, or you can always shoot them a phone call, 205-271-2966. The Pilgrimage Department, you might want to come down to Irondale, Alabama. We would love to have
Joy,
you.
I just want to say, it's just my own observation. We've seemed to have so many more people coming to Irondale since Mother's passing.
Yes.
And so I don't know what she's doing up there in terms of her prayers, and that people just want to go to her resting place. But this family is being built up in a special way. You don't want to miss this, so please come down, join us here at EWTN. We would love to have you and to host you. Let's go to Joan now. She's ready here in Rome.
Well, greetings from my home to all of you at home, and here we are in the last days of April, but it's been actually a very big Jubilee week here because we had the Jubilee of young people, that is to say teens, 13 to 16-year-old. 70,000 of them were in Rome at the Vatican. That included friends and family members and teachers and people from their parish. In any event, the city of Rome and the Vatican was filled with their joy and laughter and enthusiasm and their singing, and of course a great show of faith. And there was a big surprise for them on Saturday. Pope Francis, unannounced, came out to St. Peter's Square, joined scores of other priests, confessors, and he confessed 16 young people. I can't even imagine what they're thinking today. And by the way, a lot of them are still in Rome as we speak. Now, Sunday there was a Mass for the Jubilee of Youth, and the Pope had a wonderful homily. He focused it on something we all know, on the word love. And in his memorable words, he told the teens that love is the Christian's identity card. This is the only valid document identifying us as Christians. And if this card is not constantly renewed, or if it expires, we stop being witnesses of the Master. And he said, the Master, of course, is Jesus. Let us learn from him. His words are a school of life, a school that we learn to love. And then the Pope spoke in a lot of words that young people really understand. He said, don't be content with mediocrity. He said, with simply going along with the flow and being comfortable and at ease. And he said, by the way, don't believe the people that tell you you're only good and only great if you're like people in the movies, or you wear the latest fashions, or you're rich. And then he said, happiness does not have a price. This is wonderful. It cannot be bought. It's not an app you can download on your phones, nor will the latest update bring you freedom and grandeur in love. Really great words, words I think we are all going to remember. We shall pause and reflect, but time's up here, so back to you at home.
Thank you so much, Joan. Another wonderful and fitting report for this discussion on Catholic education. Why? Were you aware of that gathering of thousands of young people there and what took place?
Yes, I saw that online, and it was so exciting. I mean, Pope Francis in his lovely way, the way he is, he's so approachable, so out there.
Yeah.
The fact that he was out taking confessions was such a beautiful testimony for, I think, that we can share with our students. In particular, I think we talked a little bit about the Year of Mercy and the effect of Pope Francis on some of our schools. And, you know, in our lifetime, our children were able to see the conclave,
Right.
to see, we waited for the white smoke, you know, we got to talk about all that process, we got to see a brand new pope, and that has been a beautiful thing in and of itself. And then the focus on the Year of Mercy, that gives us a whole nother level of catechesis and teaching that we can both teach to the intellect and to the heart, but then we can go out and do those acts of mercy and learn how to be better stewards of the grace and mercy that we're given.
Nathan, your thoughts on that report and Pope Francis's influence upon the church, young people, the Year of Mercy, corporal works, spiritual works. How are you incorporating that in your school?
One thought I had is never before in the history of the world has the Vatican and Pope Francis and the Holy Father been more accessible to our schools and our homes. You know, almost instantaneously we can look on YouTube and see as if we were there through a window of the television exactly what happened. We're not reading it in a paper a month later. We're not hearing an encyclical that got sent to us over a boat. We're reading it right now. We're watching it right now. So in our Catholic schools, the opportunity to connect our students to the Holy Father is so exciting. A Wednesday audience, what he did this past weekend, it can be in their classrooms. And so as Stephanie mentioned, when we had these beautiful events of the church, they're watching them live. They're watching the cardinals vote for the Holy Father while they're eating lunch.
I want to clarify and elaborate in this area because I remember when our kids were in school and they started bringing TVs into the school. And of course, back then, you know, the media end of things and social media wasn't even, you know, around very much. But we said, well, there's TVs in the school. What's that about? and maybe that can be helpful. Here's how it's going to help. But then we saw who was sponsoring some of these TVs that they brought in and what was going on, and there was an agenda through the people that were putting them in. And so we were kind of like, this is not, so we had to confront that, but yet they got free TVs and so on. So what I'm hearing you say is, I want to talk more about media in the school and education through media, through TV or radio or smartphones or internet. In the old days, it was like you had a library, and you still have a library with books and all. I hope that's always there, and then it's upgraded and so on, but there's so many other ways that you can get information. Tell us again, are your students actually seeing the Pope, or are they seeing specials that are being offered? I mean, you're using the media as an instructive tool, of course, in the Catholic ethos of that.
Yeah, in our Catholic schools, sometimes there's a danger that we're compromised by corporate America, or we're compromised by the federal government. Oh, they take federal funds in this area, then we must have to adopt this certain curriculum. There's all kinds of ideas about Catholic school, and again, the best way is to ask the principal, ask the parish priest. Is our Catholic school being compromised by this? There's so much that's being used politically that may or not be true in our Catholic schools. I can speak for my own. I'm very confident in saying we'll never be compromised by anything that would compromise our faith and morals or our convictions about our church. And that's a great footing to be on. That we'll never have to be compromised for a television or an electronic device or federal funds. And that's a great place to be. So we buy our own televisions, we pay our own internet bill, and we show things in a way that if it's helpful and if it fits with the curriculum. I love when I walk parents around, I frequently say, if the power was off, if it suddenly went out and we were still able to have school, your child would get the same education. We have amazing technology, but teaching, again, is human. It hasn't changed since the time of Christ. It's a human being teaching another human being. And good teachers produce good education, good teaching. So the technology enhances what's going on. Technology on its own can never help a poor teacher to be a good teacher.
That's right.
And it can never make education better. No matter how many iPads or smartphones you give to a student, it won't make the learning better if a good teacher is not in charge of those devices.
I love the idea about bringing the Catholic faith visually right on in. Like you could bring EWTN right into your class. It's not happening in public schools.
Oh, no. I've never seen it in public schools. But even the real live, even in the area of fine art, sacred art, music, you can go and do the panoramic museum tours of the Vatican, and it's very beautiful, something that it's just a gift, and we can't get overseas necessarily, but we can bring it into the classroom.
And just to enrich their lives with that.
That's right.
Okay, well, we're going to go straight to another email. It says, our family is financially blessed, and we have been able to put our 5 kids through Catholic schools. We love the smaller school where families can get to know each other, and we love knowing our children are going to daily Mass during the week. For families who are able, it is worth the investment. And this is from Tim and Donna from Nebraska. So they're like saying, yes, it is worth it, right? Because sometimes in life, and we find with parents, as if we raised our children, you could pay now or you're going to pay later, but you're going to pay. Right? How did you fail? What mistake did you make? And it's just like, so you might have to come up with dollars, right? And like you said, Nate, you make the sacrifice of saying, so I'm not going to get the new van. I'll have this van. And the kids will say, I hate our van. I hate our car. I'm never going to have a van.
We've seen some of Nate's cars.
Our kids we were back in the day when you had the paneling on the station wagon kind of thing, and we were before vans. And they're like, I hate our car. We don't have a cool car. But well, you're going to school and you're okay, right? And those are the sacrifices.
And this will be your car.
Right, and so be quiet, because that's going to be your car when you start driving. And but that's the beauty of it, right? People make sacrifices, but it's what are you making a sacrifice? Your teachers, your principals are making sacrifices, right? I mean, they're not. You don't make a lot of money. Teachers, it's a vocation. It's a calling from God Almighty to be who they are. Right? And so maybe they're not getting the top dollar that they would get maybe in the public school, but they're doing what they do because it's a gift to them, right?
It is, and it flows through that grace that we receive. I heard Bishop Barron one time talk about when we receive grace, we need to give it away, and the more that we give it away, the more that we receive it. So as teachers, as principals, we are always teaching And we receive those graces, we pass them on to the children, and it multiplies and grows and just takes a life of its own.
I'd like to, as we're getting close to the end here, but talk about the power of the sacraments and especially the Eucharist in Catholic education and the reality, what difference it makes.
Right. Well, our Catholic schools are not private schools with religion class.
Right.
Our Catholic schools are centered on the Eucharist. And I frequently say at our school, the Mass is the center of the school, our school. It's the most important thing that we do every week. It's the center of our school. We had a priest come and visit us one time, and he pulled me aside and he said, I want to make sure that I tell you this. He said, time in the sacraments is essential to faith formation.
Absolutely.
Time in the sacraments is essential to faith formation. And so it's not just intellectual, it's not just academic, we're not just teaching facts alone, but true formation of souls occurs through the sacraments. And so our children's time in adoration, giving them opportunity for confession, the way that they participate sincerely in the Eucharist and seriously in the Mass is affecting and changing their souls. And that's a transformed life. And this family of 5 that commented about the value of Catholic education, I challenge the viewers, every family that is committed to Catholic school has a beautiful story about their child's faith life. I've never found a family that didn't.
Right.
But it's amazing the depth of faith life with our Catholic school students, and it's largely because of the sacraments.
Right.
Their time with Jesus is above all.
Stephanie, some closing thoughts.
Well, I think, Nathan's absolutely right. And the beauty of children with the faith is that they're so open. The Lord asks us to be open, to be childlike, to receive that. And I know that personally, one of the greatest gifts I can receive is to watch a child come on with the light of the Lord and see that the formation that they've been given has really set them afire, and then watch that spill out into the family and the
We're
community.
going to conclude on
It's a
that
gift.
thought. Thank you so much. You did a terrific job today.
You guys were wonderful.
you.
We hope
you
you've
for
been
having us.
encouraged. Know that the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. She will be victorious. God bless you and all of your loved ones. Keep it on EWTN. Bye now.